Hey there, horror lovers. This is our deep dive into the chilling and complex ending of 825 Forest Road. Welcome back to your nerdy show. I'm your host, Spoiler Master. If you haven't watched the movie yet, then be careful, because there will be spoilers. And if you've just finished watching this horror thriller, you're probably left with a lot of questions. What exactly happened to Isabelle, Maria, and Chuck? Why did Helen target those with mental health issues? And is there a deeper mystery lurking behind the events of Ashland Falls? Today, we'll break it all down for you.
A way of trying to fix everything that you didn't need to do.
The plot in brief, 825 Forest Road, is a horror thriller that centers on the haunted town of Ashland Falls. Chuck Wilson, his wife Maria, and his sister Isabelle move into an old house, hoping to start over after the tragic loss of their mother in a car accident. Isabelle, who was behind the wheel during the crash, is struggling with depression, and Chuck believes living together as a family might help her recover. But from the moment they step into their new home, strange things start happening. They discover that the house at 825 Forest Road has a sinister past, tied to a series of mysterious suicides, and the ghost of Helen Foster, a woman whose life was marked by tragedy, loss, and violence. As the haunting intensifies, Chuck and Isabelle realize they are at the mercy of something far more terrifying than they imagined.
Izzy, we have to go.
The haunting of Ashland Falls. At first, the strange occurrences in the house seem like simple annoyances. Chuck notices a shotgun in his photos that wasn't there in reality, while Maria finds a mannequin from her old store outside their house, seemingly placed by Isabelle as a prank. However, Isabelle is just as shocked by the mannequin's sudden appearance, and her discomfort grows as she learns more about the history of the town from their neighbor, Larry. Larry hints that the town is haunted and mentions the ghost of Helen Foster. Curious, Chuck heads to the local library to learn more, but what he discovers sends chills down his spine. Books about the town's history, including a disturbing account of Helen's life, seem to appear out of nowhere, and Chuck learns that the ghost is particularly drawn to those suffering from mental health issues. As Chuck delves deeper into Ashland Falls' past, he uncovers the story of Helen Foster, a mother from the 1940s who went on a rampage after her daughter, Mary, was bullied and ultimately took her own life. In a fit of rage, Helen killed the bully and his entire family before ending her own life with a shotgun. Afterward, the roadmap of Ashland Falls was altered to erase the existence of 825 Forest Road, but Helen's spirit lingered, terrorizing the town ever since. Why does Helen target people struggling with mental health? One of the most puzzling aspects of 825 Forest Road is why Helen's ghost specifically targets people like Isabelle and Maria. Isabelle is struggling with depression after the loss of her mother, and Maria has bipolar disorder, relying on medication to manage her symptoms. These mental health struggles seem to make them easy targets for the ghost, but why? Helen's daughter, Mary, was bullied at school and suffered from mental health issues, which led to her tragic death. So it makes sense that Helen would sympathize with others in similar emotional pain. The ghost's choice of victims, those who are vulnerable and suffering, seems almost like a twisted form of empathy. Helen may not have been able to save her daughter, but in death, she seems to want to draw others who are struggling into the same tortured existence, perhaps as a way of keeping Mary's pain alive or out of some perverse need for revenge on those who hurt her.
You needed
The town's dark history and the Friends of Gardening. Chuck's investigation into the town's history leads him to an underground group called the Friends of Gardening. These people are actively researching ways to destroy Helen's ghost, but in typical horror movie fashion, their efforts are futile. The group's secrecy isn't as secretive as they think. Everyone in Ashland Falls knows about it, and it's almost as if the more they try to suppress the town's dark past, the more it comes to the forefront. The Friends of Gardening are obsessed with finding the location of Helen's house and burning it down, believing that this will finally put an end to the haunting. But without a map, this task seems impossible. And as we later learn, even if they manage to find the house, they may not survive the attempt. After all, Helen has killed before, and she is more than willing to do it again.
Helen is said to have lived in the 40s when she killed herself.
the unlikely ally, Ashley. When a young girl named Ashley gets involved in the search for 825 Forest Road, things take a dangerous turn. She figures out a way to trace the town's grid system and pinpoint the location of Helen's house. But this obsession with finding the house leads to her untimely death. Helen, it seems, has a way of drawing people in and eliminating anyone who dares to challenge her. As Ashley's tragic end shows, trying to confront the spirit head-on doesn't work. The more the residents of Ashland Falls attempt to resist, the more they become victims of Helen's wrath.
It all goes back to the power grid.
Maria's possession and the ultimate betrayal. One of the most terrifying twists in the film occurs when Maria, who had already been struggling with her mental health, becomes possessed by Helen's spirit. This possession happens in a chilling scene where Maria, who is acting strangely, takes on a monstrous form, revealing her true identity as Helen. This possession leads to a series of violent events that leave no one untouched. The realtor, the cameraman, and Luke, who had come to help Isabelle, all become victims of the entity's wrath. In these final moments, Maria, now fully under Helen's control, wreaks havoc on anyone who stands in her way. Chuck and Isabelle, unaware of what's happening, are left searching for clues in what they think is Helen's house. But the shocking discovery they make leads to an even darker realization about their own connection to the ghost.
Is Mary?
The final revelation, the connection between the Wilson family and Helen. As Chuck searches through the house, he stumbles upon a box of letters sent by Helen to the Clark family. Letters in which Helen begs for action against the bullying her daughter Mary endured. These letters show that Helen had been desperately trying to get help, but her plea fell on deaf ears. No one responded to her concerns, and in the end, Mary took her own life. But the real shock comes when Chuck realizes that the Wilson family once lived at the same address as Helen, 15 Rose Lane. The house where Chuck and Maria had lived before moving to 825 Forest Road turns out to be the same location where Helen's house once stood. The town council, in an effort to erase the past, changed the street address and buried the truth. The house was no longer on the map, but Helen's vengeful spirit remained. This revelation adds a chilling layer to the story. Helen didn't just target outsiders or new families. She was connected to the Wilsons all along. The house that Chuck and Maria now live in is not just haunted. It is the epicenter of a curse that has stretched through generations.
These dishes won't put themselves away.
What happens to Isabelle and Maria? As the film progresses toward its unsettling climax, Isabelle and Maria are both drawn deeper into the world of the supernatural. Isabelle, who had always been a target of Helen's ghost, seems to finally be consumed by the entity. The film ends with Isabelle being taken away, possibly by Mary's spirit, who might see her as another victim of the bullying and pain she once endured. Maria, now fully possessed by Helen, becomes the final vessel for the ghost's rage. The two women, once part of a family struggling to heal, are now both lost to the supernatural forces at play in Ashland Falls. As Chuck looks on, helpless, it seems there is no escaping the town's curse. The future of Ashland Falls. A possible sequel, the ending of 825 Forest Road leaves us with many unanswered questions. What will happen to Chuck? Is there any hope for the town of Ashland Falls, or is it doomed to live in the shadow of Helen's wrath forever? The film's ambiguous conclusion hints at the possibility of a sequel, one that might explore the tragic past of Helen and her daughter Mary in greater detail. There's also the lingering question about the Clark family and whether they were involved in the hauntings. Could they be the true source of the curse instead of Helen? It's an intriguing theory, and one that would certainly add another layer of horror to this already terrifying tale. Whatever the future holds, 825 Forest Road ends on a haunting note, leaving viewers to wonder if anyone will ever be free from the town's sinister grip. Our nerdy thoughts. 825 Forest Road isn't just a ghost story. It's a layered, emotional narrative. that explores the consequences of unresolved trauma and the lasting effects of mental illness. As the characters grapple with their own struggles, they find themselves caught in a web of supernatural terror that they can't escape. The film's ending is both tragic and mysterious, and it opens the door for future exploration of Ashland Falls' dark history. We hope this explanation cleared up some of the questions you had about 825 Forest Road. Let us know your thoughts on the film, and if you think there will be a sequel, we'd love to hear your theories.